The French Grand Prix was one of the most entertaining races of the season. McLaren's Daniel Ricciardo might have started ninth, but he was determined to win. Unfortunately, he finished in the same spot as his starting position in the French Grand Prix. In this video, we'll be taking a look at Daniel Ricciardo's performance and what Nico Rosberg had to say about it, so stay tuned. First off, 2016 world champion Nico Rosberg praises Daniel's performance. While Daniel himself was rather upset with his performance, he's received praise from others. An example of all this is the 2016 world champion Nico Rosberg, who took to the internet to appreciate the Australian's performance this weekend. In his commentary for Sky Sports, Nico said that he thought it was a good idea to praise Daniel on his performance during qualifying, as he was only 1/10 of a second behind Lando. Focusing on the main race, Nico pointed out that he was stuck right behind Ocon, and while he wasn't able to surpass him, it was still a good weekend for Daniel. In the end, even if he didn't get the desired results this time, he was on the right track, and soon enough the fruits of his effort will pay off. Rosberg said that Daniel himself probably realizes it was a good weekend. Of course, placing ninth means it wasn't an impressive result, but it was still a step in the right direction, and the future probably holds better results. The former champion added that the race was something he could build on further, and Daniel's fortunate in that regard, seeing as he's endured a rather difficult time. The racer's momentum was positive, and it was great to see his hard work pay off. Secondly, Daniel Ricciardo starts off the French Grand Prix on the wrong foot. Though McLaren's Daniel Ricciardo qualified ninth, the effort in the GP was a tad bit disappointing. With only one top 10 finish on home soil in Australia, the racer's definitely been struggling this season. Because of this, he ended up having to start ninth on the grid. Earlier this weekend, Ricciardo talked about it, saying that while he was extremely frustrated at the result, he couldn't waste too much time hanging on to it, so he tried to focus on putting it behind him. The driver said that racing's a sport in which you have to move on quickly from your previous failures, because if you look back, you get a sore neck. And he's right. If you keep looking back, then all of the cars are going to pass you by in a flash. Coming to other prominent performances in the French Grand Prix, Red Bull's Max Verstappen placed first in yet another win, while Ferrari's Charles Leclerc, who had his eyes on the title, all but lost hope. Charles was on his way to victory when he tragically lost control of his Ferrari, crashing out of the race. Still, Daniel ends the race right where he started, ninth place. Just like he said that he would, Daniel left his prior failure in the past and started the French Grand Prix with his eyes on the prize. When things first kicked off, he was in the thick of things. During the opening lap, Daniel found a place right behind Lando Norris. This unfortunately didn't last for long, as Norris pulled ahead, eventually moving 7th to cross the finish line. While Norris had gone and secured himself a good position, Daniel was left behind to fight a tight battle against Esteban Ocon. Late in the race, Ocon finally pulled ahead to 8th, while Daniel was left to finish P9. He finished in the same place he started, and it was a relatively good result, certainly not as bad as Leclerc, who had to retire from the race. Still, the Australian was far from happy with the result. When he was asked to comment on his battle with Ocon, he said that while it was fun to go side by side, it definitely wasn't fun to lose in the end, especially so close to the finish line. On a positive note, this counts as another top 10 result, after a similar finish in the Australian Grand Prix. Finally, he wasn't happy with the results, and it's understandable. Finishing ninth place is acceptable for a side like McLaren, but Daniel was understandably unsatisfied with the result. He said that while he knew another points finish was important, he had hoped to get a much better position. While talking about how the race went, he mentioned how he had a reasonable pace at the start of the stint, and had tried to make the most of it. This didn't stay the case for long, as everything fell apart quite quickly, causing Daniel to struggle mid-stint and onward. The racer tried his best, but still didn't have the pace to run with the Alpines and Lando. Daniel said that while he felt like he had done the best he could have, it still wasn't enough to satisfy him. Despite the setback, the racer still thanked everyone for their hard work and for getting the upgrades into the track. The Honey Badger was obviously expecting much more from himself, and while he had a solid result, this was the second time he placed ninth. Not to mention, the Formula One mid-season break is looming just around the corner, and the next race in line is the Hungarian Grand Prix, taking place on the weekend, where the racer hopes to finally get the result he wants. Now, in other news, Racing World in shock as Sebastian Vettel announces retirement through Instagram video. A time comes when every public figure has to step away from the spotlight, whether it's by choice or not. Sebastian Vettel's one of the most famous Formula One racers of all time, and he just announced that his time has come. come. But rather than treating it as a goodbye, he says he's simply ready for the next chapter in his life. And we're here for it. Only 3 other racers have won more titles than Vettel, and he won 4 consecutive world titles from 2010 to 2013 when he was with Red Bull. Now with Aston Martin, he's decided to step away from the track, even though they wanted him for another season. His reason? He's ready to give other things his time. In a video posted on Instagram, the racer explained how he has a passion for life both on and off the track. He's decided that he really wants to spend time with his children and watch them grow because he loves being around them. Vettel stated that a lot of energy is needed to become one with the car and team to chase perfection, and he could no longer give that sort of time and commitment. He ended up saying that rather than a goodbye, the video was a thank you to fans and everyone who had supported him throughout his career. Secondly, Porsche to make Formula One comeback through 10-year deal with Red Bull. Porsche is one of the biggest names when it comes to car manufacturers, and most people would expect them to have a racing team, but it's been almost 3 decades since they withdrew their team, and now they're finally making a comeback. Rather than establishing a new team and starting from scratch, Porsche is going to be buying out 50% of Red Bull Technologies stocks. It's been reported before the formal announcement, which will be on August 4th, that the partnership will extend to their racing team as well. It's important to make this clear, as F1 business counts as a separate entity. The plan was initially going to be announced at the Austrian Grand Prix, but ended up postponed because the FIA World Motorsport Council didn't approve the engine regulations for 2026, which were necessary for Porsche to be able to return. The Volkswagen Group has been making moves to enter the F1 business, and Porsche is the first step. They already have a plan in the works to establish an Audi team, though it's not quite as far along as this one. At this time, we know that Red Bull and probably AlphaTauri will have Porsche engines, but the Faenza-based team will be controlled by Red Bull alone. Lastly, Charles Leclerc can kiss title hopes goodbye after French GP disaster. The racer started out great and had a solid lead on his rival for the title, Red Bull's Max Verstappen, but one wrong move and Leclerc was sent spinning into the turn 11 barriers, costing him the title. To be honest, no one's as hard on Leclerc as himself right now. It's the 3rd time this season he's had to retire while in the lead, and his frustration was pretty clear from the scream that could be heard over the team radio. Meanwhile, Max took a 63-point lead. It's looking pretty bad for Charles, who just saw his chance for a world title slip through his fingers. Even though he's at the highest point in his career, the racer admitted that he thought it was pointless if he kept up with these mistakes, saying, "If I keep making mistakes like this, then I deserve to not win the championship." That's a wrap for this video. Do you think Daniel Ricciardo could have done better in the French GP? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.